Okay, I've gone into my spreadsheet and I noticed there's an error. I noticed that toothbrush should actually all be one word. How do I go about changing that? Sometimes you can double click and you can go in there, but there's actually an editing toolbar up the top of your page. So if I select a cell, you notice that the words appear up here as well, and they're independent of the font. So with tutor, you can actually see what happens. So with toothbrush, I want to alter this. So rather than trying to double click and change it down below, I'm just going to do it in the bar above. And I can go back and go toothbrush and make it all one word. So if I decide to change something like yellow and I wanted to go to another color, I could actually just come in, highlight the word up here, change the word, and the corresponding change would occur down here. So it's really important that you get used to this bar up the top here. It's also very good for actually editing formulas, and that's where we're heading now. Now, we talked before about placing text in. You'll notice that text normally sits on the left hand side of a cell. If I place a number in, say, blue, and I put the number 12 in there, and I push the arrow down key or enter or even tab, you notice when I move out of it, the number moves to the right hand side. This indicates it's actually a number and not a text 12. We can't perform mathematical calculations on text, but we can perform them on numbers. So 12 I can perform a mathematical calculation on, but if I put 12b into a cell, you notice that it's sitting on the left hand side now rather than the right hand side, because the spreadsheet has picked this up as text and has placed it on the left hand side, and therefore I can't perform a mathematical function on those. So it's really important that you keep your numbers separated from your text. So there's a bit of design work that you need to do in spreadsheets to ensure that your spreadsheets work effectively. So what we're going to do is populate this table with some numbers. So we could actually go through and type in different numbers for sales. Try to keep the numbers relatively small. Okay, now we have a table of numbers, but what can a spreadsheet do for us? Well, a spreadsheet has a number of different ways of adding things up. So if we wanted to, the first example of how to add numbers up, we need to tell the spreadsheet that we're going to enter in a formula. So therefore we need to use the equal sign. On a calculator we normally punch the numbers in and then go equals at the end, but in a spreadsheet we actually tell it we need to perform a calculation, therefore we put the equals first. And we can actually add up the list of numbers. We can actually add up 12 plus 13 plus 16 plus 9 and press enter, and it gives us the total of 50. So this works really well for us. But with a spreadsheet, if I actually alter 12 and say, oh, he actually sold 15, and I press enter, you notice that the number here didn't change, because what we've added up is a series of numbers, not actually what was in the cells. So if I wanted that to be included, I would have to come up here, edit my formula, and change that to 15. And then the number would be right. So what we really want to do is add up the contents of the cells. So in this example here, we'll once again start with the equal sign because we're going to perform a function. And we're going to add up the contents of the cells. Now the first one is E and the row is 6. So we can actually say, well, I want to add up E6. And I want to go plus. And you notice there's a little blue box around this one. I can go, well, also I want E7 plus E8 plus E9. Now each one of these have been given a different color code so you can see exactly which cell you're adding up. When I press enter, it adds up all the different numbers. So if I come in here now and say, well, actually I sold 33 toothbrushes, and I press enter, the formula automatically updates. Where in the previous example where we just added the numbers together, if the spreadsheet changes, we have to go through and alter the actual equation at the bottom. In this case, we just add up the contents of the cell and it can produce the actual answer for us. And this is the major difference of the spreadsheet. The power of this has saved a lot of number crunching, because if we had 1,000 cells of numbers and we need to add them up, we can easily add them up. But over 1,000, you really don't want to sit there and say, well, E6 plus E7 plus E8 plus E9 and so on and so forth for 1,000 of them. So they actually worked out a better way of doing this, and what they called was a range. Now a range allows us to add up a series of numbers, and so they thought, well, how are we going to get a range? So I want it from, say, F6 to F9. So that's the range I want to use. So I want to add up all those numbers right there. So they worked out we could actually use the equal sign, because we're going to do a function, and we can use a function called sum. Now you notice as I type this in, we get all these different formulas down the bottom here, and then I can put a bracket in. I can enter in the range, or I can actually click and drag. Now we talked about that blue box before, and you notice that this blue box here covers all those numbers. And we've got F6 colon, which is the 2 dots, to F9. When I close this bracket off and press enter, it adds up that number range. And once again, I can come in, I can alter any of these I like, so from 12 to 14, press enter, and the answer changes. So this is a lot easier to actually add up a list of numbers. So rather than typing them individually in for the cells, and it's a lot better than typing in the actual numbers themselves. So this has actually increased our time. They also worked in another version that we need something a little bit quicker than that. And you'll find on your table what's called an auto sum, and it has that enigma sign. If you click that, you notice it's already placed the equal sum for me. It's also put the range in there, and all I have to do is press enter. So they've actually made things a lot easier for us. So we can actually add things up, and we can work out, well, what were the total blue ones, and I can actually come here now and put total. I know what the total blue toothbrushes were, the total red, total yellow, etc. Now we're going to work out what were the individual sales. So I can place another total here, and we can actually have a look now and say, well, how do we work this out? Well, we worked out before that there's several different ways we can sum up a column. We can do the same thing for a row, but the only difference going to be is all these numbers on 6, so we're going to start at D6, and we're going to go through to G6, where before we started at something like G6 and went to G9. So in our formula, you see G6 to G9. So we're going to just change the way at which it adds it up. So we can use the same formula, equals sum, bracket, and highlight the range, close the bracket and press enter. Or we can use the auto sum, and it's quite intelligent because it knows where we're sitting, and we can actually say, no, actually not there, I want over here. And you notice I just clicked and dragged where we were, and I can press enter, and it now goes, oh, that's what you want to sum up. Now we can also copy and paste this formula down by going Control C and then Control V, and you notice when I copy that, it's gone from the D7 to D8s. So it automatically knows to increment those. There's also a copy block. If you look at the bottom right hand corner of your stage, and I'll just move this back to the left a little, try just a little further, there's a little black box in the corner. If I go onto that where it turns to a cross, click and drag down, it'll also copy the formula for me. And how effective that is? Well, if I click on this one here we know is correct, click on that box and drag right across these ones here, it copies the formula and makes the adjustment from G to F to E to D. So now when I click in the D10, where I had the numbers like 15 plus 13 plus 16, when I click there now, you notice the formula equals D6 to D9. So I'm able to actually add them all up. I can actually get the totals and I've got the totals here. If I want to find out what the grand total is, which is going to sit in this bottom corner, I've got a choice. I can either add up the row or I can add up the column. So I'm just going to click in there and hit the auto sum and see which one the spreadsheet wanted to do. It's naturally gone, let's do the column, and I'm quite happy with that, and I'll go yes, give me the total. So there was actually 272 actual toothbrushes sold by everyone. Now if any of these change, so from 15 to 20, when I press enter, this will update. The 272 has gone to 277. You have to remember that this cell's changed, which has altered this formula here, that changes this formula down here. And you noticed how quick it was as well when it's changing. Now we want to go through and actually make this look a little better, so I'm going to select my pencil tool and I'm going to go through and I'm just going to click and drag now, and I can actually draw boxes around things that I want. If you want to change the colours of those, you can. You can also center the totals at the bottom, so I'll turn this off now. I can also highlight these totals here and go center. And I can also highlight this bottom one if I wanted to. I could actually make the text white and then backfill the back of it with red. With red. And you can actually see the total. If I wanted to, I can also bold that so it stands out a little bit more. So you can actually see the grand total. If I want to change the totals, I can actually just bold those just to make them look a little bit better. So what we've done there is actually worked out how to create a spreadsheet, place numbers in them, and create our very first formulas.